Texas football with this new ranking in this week AP polls after a hectic week in college football. And Texas volleyball sweeping LSU and Bibble rival A&M to start the SC playoffs strong. Plus, the MLB playoffs are finally underway, and we're excited to bring you special coverage in Spanish. All this and more on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome to College Press Box. I'm Giorgy Ruiz, here joined by Ayan Masud, and it was another successful weekend for Texas football. But before we dive in, we want to remind you that College Press Box is brought to you by Cap Metro, ONS's transit system. We connect you to work, school, play, and everywhere in between. Plan your ride to this weekend's game at capmetro.org.
The Longhorns had their long-awaited welcome to the SEC against the Mississippi State Bulldogs on Saturday. The game ended in a victory with the Longhorns winning 35-13, but it was not enough to retain the number one spot in the country. Texas dropping to number 2 was due in particular to the first half, which was a slow start that Longhorn fans did not expect. The Bulldogs opened up with a 7-minute drive that did nothing but take away time from Texas's explosive offense. 4th and 7, the Bulldogs don't convert. It's a turnover on downs. Manning did fill in for Quinn Ewers on Saturday and had some dimes. This one going all the way downfield to DeAndre Moore out at the 1-yard line. Arch's deep ball's accuracy is looking like his biggest strength. Jaden Blue powers his way into the end zone, and it would be his only rushing touchdown of the night, and we'll see on this play right here. Let's just say when you have a hot hand and you fumble the ball twice, your hand turns a little blue, and Jaden Blue did exactly that, fumbling here and opening up the second half. Here's a spark, though, coming off the penalty to make it 3rd and 9. Arch with a drop into the hands of DeAndre Moore. Again, you saw Arch take a brutal hit, but he still focuses on getting the ball into the hands of his man downfield. This is why fans can't wait until he is the official QB1 next year. At half, the Longhorns were up 14-6. The defense steps up, and the true freshman Colin Simmons gets another sack. But it doesn't matter. Another drive, the Longhorns don't get any points coming off the clutch sack. Time of possession was dominated by Mississippi State by nearly 10 minutes, but the Longhorns picked it up later in the game. The playmaker on the play, DeAndre Moore, comes in motion, and the play collapses, and that boy Archibald goes racing to the pylon, stretching, but he was just short. The Longhorns go on to score 2 more touchdowns to pull away with the win and are heading into the bye week with getting some much needed rest before they travel to Dallas for the Red River rivalry. Santiago Ortiz and Perla Paredes covered this past Saturday's inaugural SEC matchup at DKR. Let's hear more from them about their perspective of what a historic day it was for the Burnt Orange.
This Saturday, the Texas Longhorns completed their SEC debut by defeating the Mississippi State Bulldogs 35-12 in what was a rocky game for the Texas Longhorns. The Longhorns struggled to find their footing in what felt like a trap game for the home team, but as the offense struggled, the defense held stout, holding the Bulldogs to only 2 field goals in the first half. Arch Manning in the offense finally got going with 29 seconds left in the first half as Manning found DeAndre Moore Jr. for a 49-yard touchdown pass. The second half started with a misstep for the Longhorns as Jaden Blue suffered what would be his first of 2 fumbles for the game. But the defense stepped up as Verton Broughton stripped and recovered a fumble for Texas, followed up by an Arch Manning touchdown run, a throw to DeAndre Moore for a touchdown, and an Isaiah Bond 27-yard touchdown run. In a game where the Longhorns came out flat, they were able to prevail and get the win relying on key performances from Contravion Wisner and Colin Simmons. Here's head coach Steve Sarkisian on how Texas moves forward from this shaky game into SEC play.
I'm going to come in here Monday, and there's going to be a lot for me to show. There's going to be a lot for me this will probably be an extended good, bad, and ugly that I show because we're not going to practice Monday. And so I can have that meeting go longer. And I really want to show them areas where we can improve as a team. Because that's, I think, what the great teams do. They continue to get better as the season goes on.
The Longhorns are once again 5-0 going into their matchup in Dallas with OU. For TSTV Sports, this is Santiago Ortiz signing off.
Now joining us is TJ Krilowicz to give us some insight on the matchup against Mississippi State from Saturday. TJ, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on. Ready to talk some Texas football.
Yeah, it was about until the morning of the game that Texas announced that Arch was going to be the starting quarterback. How do you think he did in his second start?
Yeah, after seeming to struggle a little bit against ULM last week, I mean a little bit, Arch Manning was on all cylinders Saturday. I'm sure he was prepared to start all week with Quinn still recovering, and he played a great game, completing 26 passes on 31 attempts for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns. Manning also added 33 yards on the ground through 6 attempts. Arch, he looked more grounded this game. It seemed against ULM, he felt a little impatient at times, just wanting to sling it downfield every other play. But against Mississippi State, he opted for more quick passes, making his completion rate look a lot better, which was a goal that Steve Sarkisian created for the quarterback this game. Post-game, Sarkisian mentioned how he wanted to get Manning some easy passes instead of throwing deep. Furthermore, I think Manning played consistently well throughout the game, and he didn't let how close the game was affect his play style. He played like a veteran out there, showing composure through the air, and once he got his legs running in the second half, Mississippi State struggled to have an answer for Manning and the offense. I'm sure a lot of fans would appreciate if he would just go down instead of scrambling when he's scrambling, but his run that could have been called a touchdown was just a glimpse of his two-dimensional game that will be really scary when he gets more comfortable in the pocket. To end this, I also wanted to mention that Manning's performance against Mississippi State was the highest rated PFF grade for any FBS quarterback this year. Manning knew he had to play smart when it's uncertain when he'll see the field again this season with viewers healing up, and with that, he made a lasting impact on just how good he can be when he finally becomes QB1.
So we all watched the first half. Why do you think Texas couldn't pull away until that second half?
Well, mental mistakes was for sure the name of the game for Texas, especially in that first half. First off, it should be known that Mississippi State showed a lot of fight and could be stopped in the run game. They had already 100 yards before halftime, while Texas was in the negatives for rushing until under 2 minutes until halftime. The disparity in the rushing game kept Mississippi State in the game and also let them dominate the pace of the game. While Texas had only one drive go for over 2 minutes in the first half, Mississippi State had 3 drives that would go over 3, including the first drive that went for 13 plays and 7 minutes. Yes, it ended on a turnover on downs, but the Bulldogs were able to establish the run game in that drive that did not cool down until the Bulldogs were forced to pass late in the game down multiple scores, which is also when Texas started to look like the defense we've seen all season. Shout out to Colin Simmons. He stopped the run game almost by himself and also consistently got pressure on the QB. On the offensive side, there are lots of frustration with mistakes. While Arch did have a good game, the play calling was a little bit questionable at times from Steve Sarkisian, and the offensive line and running game each had their worst games of the season. The offensive line did allow 2 sacks, but it was the flags that hurt the team and would continually make the drive harder than it should be. Kane Williams struggled again with holding, and DeAndre Moore Jr., despite having 2 touchdowns, also had a holding penalty on a 3rd down in the red zone that nullified a 1st down and goal. On the same drive, Cole Hudson had a hold that took away a 20-yard touchdown from Trey Wisner. And for some reason, the offensive line really struggled with staying set. The false starts kept making the drives harder than they had to be, but most importantly, what kept the offense from pulling away was what I mentioned earlier, the disparity of the running game. I would never thought that Jaden Blue would struggle like he did after his 4-touchdown performance last week. His 2 fumbles, one in Mississippi State territory, really stifled the offense. We've seen Blue struggle with holding onto the ball before, but luckily, Mississippi State was not a very good team. The problem is, when very good teams play Texas, the running game and offensive line cannot afford that amount of mistakes and expect to win. This bye week should really help these aspects of the game figure out what went wrong on Saturday and build on it before going back-to-back weeks against Oklahoma and Georgia.
Yeah, 2 major matchups, but going into these matchups, do you think fans should have a little bit of worry?
Again, I think the mistakes need to be cleaned up, whether it's the flags, the amount of missed tackles, or Steve Sarkisian not taking the 2-possession lead with a field goal, instead going for a 4th and 3 that ended in a turnover on downs. It's not crazy that Texas might have taken a step down after this week, but I don't think fans should really hit the panic button just yet. With a bye week coming and then Oklahoma and Georgia, I don't think Texas wanted to show their whole playbook for tape material. Those are games you start preparing for even in the spring, while you can't really say the same about Mississippi State. With that being said, it still was too close for comfort for a lot of the game, But with that being said, the Longhorns showed great resilience in the game. They never panicked. They kept the game plan going, and it eventually got Texas a multiple score lead. They had many times where the momentum could have swung, but didn't because of the resilience. Even if you want to panic, look, the top SEC teams, they really struggled this year, exception from Alabama. Look, Ole Miss got upset at home to Kentucky, and also Oklahoma and Texas A&M were both losing at some point and barely beat mediocre SEC teams. I believe Texas will be just fine. Quinn Ewers is coming back for those Oklahoma and Georgia games, which should excite Texas fans even though they love Arch Manning. The experience and leadership of Quinn Ewers will help tremendously, and I also think the running game won't struggle like that again, hopefully. I believe they'll be just all right.
Yeah, I think this bye week is going to be really key for the Longhorns. But thank you so much for the analysis, TJ. When we come back to College Press Box, Texas Volleyball is getting into the groove of things as they enter SEC play. Campbell Choate has more for us when we return to College Press Box.
Well, welcome back to College Press Box. Here to talk Texas Volleyball is Campbell Choate. How are we doing today, Campbell?
I'm good. Texas Volleyball is undefeated in the SEC, so how can you not be in a good mood?
No, you're right. And, just starting off, they started off the season a little rocky, but are now 2-0, as you said. And, SEC conference play has been going on. What changes have you seen since the start of the season and now?
Yeah, like you said, I think we can all agree that Texas' first few losses raised some red flags, but hey, look where they're at now. Texas is 2-0 in conference play and heads into Wednesday night's home game against South Carolina on a 4-game win streak, which it's been a while since we've seen that. Not only did they start off conference play strong, but they did it against A&M. A&M is not a ranked team, but I don't need to describe to y'all that the environment of that rivalry is just different. Texas Volleyball got ahead of A&M, and they're the first team to say they beat A&M in the SEC, in addition now to Texas Soccer, who won yesterday. So as a university, Texas is up 2-0 to A&M. The Longhorns traveled to College Station and beat the Aggies 3-1. So you ask, what's changed from Texas' previous performances this season to now? Texas got up early, kept it that way, and then sided out quick when they needed. Take the first few plays of the game, for example. Texas puts a run together and gets right back on it when A&M scores. The Aggies were 2 points ahead, were unable to string together more than 2 points in the first set in a row. So, again, we're breaking those runs. Texas strung together 6 points to go from a tie game to being up 17-12 in the third set. Now, there were some bumps in the road, but Texas still went from being 1-1 after set 2 to winning the next 2 in a wide enough margin. But even more improvement was made from the conference play opener on Friday night to last night. Let me just say this, 302. Highest we've seen yet, and that's Texas' hitting percentage. That went from 175 against A&M to now 302 against LSU. That sounds more like that back-to-back national championship team to me, but most notably, we saw that Maddie Skinner we've been missing. Now, it's nearly impossible to replicate the season she's had last year, so let me not discredit her, but maybe this is evidence that she's back. Maddie Skinner had 10 kills against LSU and 4 errors, but again, going from 14 errors against Miami to 4 is an improvement.
No, it's definitely an improvement here. And, speaking of improvement, you don't really see much changes within the starting 6, since the beginning to how it was in the start. So what players have you seen emerge that you think can be like the new leaders and leading this team to greatness?
Yeah, let me just say this. Last time I was on, I did say that we need to pay attention to Reagan Rutherford and Mariana Singletary, so I think I was right. Rutherford provides a huge threat on the right side for Texas offense, and she's gotten more consistent too. Rutherford and Singletary led with 4.2 hitting averages against LSU, 0.429, with 7 kills for Reagan and 8 for Mariana. As for Singletary, the block is nasty and the slide is nasty. Once again, I said that last time I was here. But there's a force you have to recognize when watching this team, and that's Devin Kahahawai. Kahahawai put up 11 kills against A&M, most of which came in clutch moments. Kahahawai is consistent where you can rely on her to kill the side out, and she moves around defense well enough to not pose as a target to other teams. And she can also read an opposing defense quickly. Also, just as a side note, I really like watching her serve. Just like her hitting, she's consistent and finds a good spot. You'll see her in a minute. She's going to nail that right to the back corner. I have to give a shout out to Jenna Winnis and Kayla Akana. Winnis has showed huge improvements on the defensive side of things, and if I had to describe Akana, I mean, it'd be reliable. Like, not just now, but for the past 3 seasons, basically. She has always been there, someone you can depend on.
You know, we see kind of this, like you said earlier, this Texas team turning into the back-to-back national championships. But, we still have a long road to go. There's still 14 games in the SEC conference. Which one do you think we should look out for? And how can you predict the rest of the season should be going?
Yeah, let me just say one more time. Some of my predictions earlier were, kind of accurate, so I feel like there's some hope here. But biggest threats left on the schedule are Kentucky and Tennessee. Kentucky is ranked at 12, and Tennessee is tied for 20th. Now, luckily for Texas, I think Reagan Rutherford and Maddie Skinner know a thing or two about Kentucky, but who knows? Kentucky also started off the season a little rough. They're 7-6, but they've had a really tough schedule, losing to number 2 Nebraska, number 7 Penn State, number 7 Purdue, and number 4 Louisville. Kentucky also lost to Stanford 3-1, and Texas lost to them earlier in the season 3-0. The Wildcats are going to be the best team the Longhorns play in the SEC, but if the momentum continues to build, I see this one going to the win column. I see Texas having a pretty lengthy win streak because honestly their schedule is full of teams they should be beating. Between October 18th and November 3rd, Texas has 5 consecutive home games, and if there's a time for them to move up in the polls, it's going to be then. Arkansas may also prove to be a threat. They're 12-2 and on a hot streak, and they've started off conference play 2-0 as well. But Texas has until the 18th to see if they're truly someone to worry about.
You know what? Yeah, as the season goes on, we're going to see more and more growth from these players, and it's going to be great. But, thank you so much, as always, Campbell, for your insights and everything. And when we come back, the MLB Postseason is finally upon us, and Perla Paredes will be here to update the show in Spanish, a special coverage you do not want to miss. We'll be right back on College Press Box.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Thank you to Giorgy and Campbell for breaking down some of the volleyball information in the previous segment. On today's episode of Press Box, we have a new segment with Perla Paredes on the MLB Postseason in Espanol. Perla, take it away.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. Bienvenidos a nuestro segmento especial sobre la Serie Mundial de las Ligas Mayores. Hoy nos enfocaremos en la Liga Americana más, donde los Astros de Houston, sembrados en el tercer lugar, se enfrentarán a los Tigres de Detroit, el sexto sembrado en la serie de comodines el 1 de octubre. Comencemos con Detroit, que ha hecho una gran impresión este año. Su principal figura, sin duda, Tarik Skubal. No solo ha sido excepcional, sino que se convirtió en el primer lanzador de la Liga Americana en ganar la triple corona de picheo desde que Justin Verlander la ganó en el 2011. Skubal lideró a los pitchers en el AL con 18 victorias, una efectividad de 2.39 y 228 ponches. El contendiente para el Cy Young durante la temporada enfrentó a los Astros 2 ocasiones en su primera salida en mayo. Limitó a Houston a solo 2 carreras en 6 entradas. Sin embargo, los Astros lo anotaron 4 carreras en su segundo encuentro en junio. Esto muestra que aunque puede ser dominante, Houston también tiene la capacidad de hacer ajustes contra este pitcher. Ahora pasemos a Framber Valdez. Él será el abridor del primer juego para los Astros, con un récord de 15-7 y una efectividad de 2.91. Ha sido una pieza clave en la rotación de los Astros. A lo largo de la temporada, Valdez comenzó a utilizar más su curva que su mejor picheo. Y luego, Houston ha llegado a la serie de campeonato de la Liga Americana 7 veces en los últimos 8 años y le hicieron a recuperarse de estar 12 juegos por debajo de 500 en 2 ocasiones esta temporada. Este tipo de experiencia es invaluable con los playoffs. Tienen una mentalidad impresionante. Este verano incluso tuve un placer de ir al clubhouse con los Houston Astros y noté que los muchachos tenían la mente fría. Al ganar o no ganar. Siento que esto habla mucho sobre su éxito a poder ir al otro juego con la mente clara y listos. A medida que nos acercamos a la serie de los Astros, tienen la ventaja de haber estado en esta situación antes. Y si ganan, se enfrentarán a Cleveland en la próxima ronda y su profundidad y talento seguirán siendo factores determinantes, así que creo que esa ronda la va a llevar los Astros. Ahora de la otra liga, en la nacional, tengo que mencionar a los Orioles y los Royals de Kansas City. Están luchando para avanzar. Kansas City ha mostrado una mejora en su rendimiento al final de la temporada, pero todavía tienen que probar que pueden ganar en octubre, que es algo que no hemos visto antes. En la posible serie de campeonato de la Liga Nacional, los Yankees de Nueva York podrían ser un adversario formidable. Sin embargo, su estrella Aaron Judge no luce en la postemporada, pero la llegada de Juan Soto a los Yankees ha generado mucha expectativa. Soto es conocido por brillar en los momentos importantes y su experiencia podría ser crucial. No hay que olvidarnos que ha ganado una serie mundial en el 2019 que también jugó contra los Astros. El picheo también está ahí, pero la debilidad de Nueva York es que el bullpen y la segunda mitad de su línea, y es donde pueden que los Astros pueden aprovecharse. Ese equipo ha demostrado que pueden ganar en diversas maneras, ya sea a través de su picheo, de su ofensiva o su defensa. A pesar de las dificultades, siempre encuentran formas de ganar. Recientemente, al cometer 4 errores en agosto 19 en un juego contra los Red Sox, lograron salir victoriosos, lo que refleja la resiliencia de este equipo. También hay que destacar que a sus estrellas que han sido unos pilares, José Altuve, un futuro miembro del Salón de la Fama, Alex Bregman, Jordan Álvarez y Kyle Tucker, que son uno de los mejores bateadores de la historia de la postemporada, además más contra los izquierdos. Además, la profundidad del equipo es impresionante, desde Jeremy Peña, el MVP de la Serie Mundial en el 2022, hasta Yainer Díaz y Víctor Caratini. Tienen una alineación temible. En la Liga Nacional tenemos a los Dodgers, que usualmente se agotan en la postemporada, pero ahora tienen a alguien muy importante, el único miembro del 50-50 Club, Shohei Ohtani. Y si no lo hemos visto, y sí, puede que no lo hemos visto en estos lugares, que sea en la postemporada, pero sí lo hemos visto en el Clásico Mundial de Béisbol. Y ese dominó completamente para su país en Japón. En resumen, la Serie Mundial se perfila como un evento emocionante. Todos son un equipo completo, con un talento y una mentalidad ganadora. Así que, en mi opinión, yo creo que al último van a ser Los Ángeles contra Houston y a ver quién se lleva esta World Series del 2024.
Thank you so much, Perla. When we return to College Press Box, we take a look at this past week in Longhorn sports and look ahead on what is to come. Stay with us right here on CPP.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Now let's take a look back into this past week of Longhorn sports. Texas senior center Jake Majors was named a semifinalist for the Jason Witten Collegiate Man of the Year. Majors, with his 45 career starts, have been a dominant force in this season, leading an offense that ranks 11th nationally in scoring and 12th in total offense. His stand-up performance at the Texas Big Win at Michigan earned him Outland National Player of the Week, and Major has also helped Texas rank 10th in passing offense and 17th in sacks allowed, proving to be a key player in the Longhorns' success. But this award is dedicated to those who show leadership on and off the field. He is an active member of the community, volunteering at nonprofits and spends his time lifting the community with his personality. He volunteers at food shelters and with his local community to encourage outdoor participation and to build a healthy lifestyle. And best of luck to Majors with his future endeavors.
After Elliot Spizzeri won the ITA All-American Tournament last year, Sebastian Gorzini will be the second Longhorn in the last 2 years to reach a final. Gorzini was in a dog match to advance to the singles final against Aiden Kim of Ohio. Sebastian ended up winning the 3-set contest, taking the first set with a resilient comeback to take it. After almost winning the second set, Kim went on a 3-0 run to prevent a sweep. Finally, in the set to send Gorzini to the ITA All-America singles final, he went back and forth with Kim all match, but was able to hold on in the end to defeat Kim by breaking on a deuce point to win it.
And Texas soccer made a statement in their first SEC season, earning them back-to-back wins against Ole Miss and Texas A&M. The Longhorns secured their first ever SEC victory with a 1-0 over Ole Miss this past Thursday, thanks to Ashlyn Miller's game-winning goal set up by Lexley Mismo. Just days later, Texas followed up with a 2-1 win against Texas A&M, showcasing their dominance in the SEC play. Mismo continued to shine, assisting both game-winning goals in these crucial matches as the Longhorns proved they can hang with the best in their new conference.
This week in Longhorn sports, on Wednesday the 2nd, volleyball takes on South Carolina at 6:30 on ESPN Network. On Friday the 4th, soccer takes on Florida at 6 p.m. on the SEC Network. And on Sunday, volleyball again faces Florida at 12 p.m. on ESPN. That will wrap up this week's edition of College Press Box. Make sure to tune into our other shows this week, including College Crossfire on Wednesdays airing at 9 p.m. and the 1-0 Sports Show now on Fridays at 11 a.m. Thank you to all of our analysts, everyone in Master Control, and our executive producer, Joseph Duffy. And from everyone else here at TSTV, I'm Ayan Masud, and she's Giorgy Ruiz. Thank you for joining us, and have a great night.